Oh
Something like that.
wow.
Yeah,
Hey.
that's all right. And then
Uh,
we're already at 20 something with Star Wars, 23 or something like that.
Wow.
Not bad.
See, thank you guys. It is a small amount, but I hope we're entertaining.
Yeah.
If not, tell us in the comments and we'll just stop. You
Um,
guys suck.
Stop it, Mom. Um, but I banned you from here already.
My mom stopped watching.
um, yeah. Welcome back
Uh,
to Phantom Lasers. I forgot we're doing a show. Again, that seems to be a running theme. Um, Today we're going to be talking about Midsommar because it's still in that kind of fall spooky mood for me. I like talking about horror movies all the time anyway, and Amanda is kind, so we're going to talk about Midsommar. And is it a good movie? Is it a bad movie? Is it fine? We're going to talk about like where we think it kind of comes from and the experiences we've had with where we think the origins for movies like this come from. So in my experience, it would be folk horror, cosmic horror, that kind of stuff. For Amanda, it would lie in fairy tales and stuff like that. So um, let's talk a little bit about first impressions. Amanda, what was your first impression of Midsummer?
okay, well, before I do that, I have to do something very
Yeah.
important. I have
Oh
to
my
put
God.
on my thinking flower crown.
Yeah.
Yes. Now I am in the cult.
Wish I had a bear hat.
I
That way I could just burn alive at the end of this movie. Spoilers, by the way. There's going to be
spoiler.
spoilers.
I hate horror movies. This
Mhm.
is not a horror movie to me. This is like a genre to itself, I feel like, because it's a fairy tale to me. This is a fairy tale movie. I'm taking this off of my head. It's falling apart.
All right. Yeah.
So, I mean, I think because it plays to that old feeling of being in the rural kind of areas where like witchy things could happen and
Mm.
like magical things could happen, even though it's real life. That's where it it is almost a cautionary tale as well. So you have a group of people that are going into a situation where they have a correct response and an incorrect response to this people's culture. And if you have the incorrect response, you die or brutally punished for
Mhm.
some in some crazy way. So the person that survives it is actually the person that has gone through like a bunch of hardship from the very beginning. So, I mean, do you want to go over the plot a little bit?
Yeah. Yeah. Let's go over the plot a little bit. So basically, this movie starts off with um, the main character's sister um, committing a like murder suicide thing, killing her parents and then killing herself. The main character's name is Danny. So we have this whole opening scene where there's like a murder suicide thing, um, and then we cut to Danny's reaction to it, and she is just crying for weeks on end on her boyfriend's shoulder. Um, I think a few scenes later, we learned that her boyfriend is kind of like not really into the relationship because she's just a downer. Uh, Makes sense, but
My whole family died. Don't be such a downer.
yeah, but mine didn't. I'm still fine. So he is that guy. He's kind of a jerk, but he doesn't want to be, that guy. He doesn't, want to be perceived as a jerk. So he doesn't break up with her, even though he kind of plans to, or he had planned to before this whole thing happened, or something like that. So we see a conversation between Christian, the boyfriend, Josh, a nerdy friend, and Mark, who's also there.
Booze hound.
I guess he's the party guy, but he doesn't look like fun. Because I don't know I don't remember what movies he's been on, but he's if you remember like a little redheaded guy who's always got like those eyebrows that are just like, yeah, he's that. It's not Mark Wahlberg, but he does have the Wahlberg eyebrows. So anyway, I digress. You have a conversation between those four guys. They're like, hey man, we're gonna go to Sweden for Uder's family reunion festival. Uder is an exchange student. I don't remember his name. Is it Pele? Peely?
Yeah, it's like Peely or Paley.
Key and Peele.
I'm not Swedish.
And I saw the movie like 6 months ago. I don't remember all of the names, but anyway, he's got this like family reunion festival thing that he's got to go back home for, back to Midsommar.
Christian, like trying to avoid the situation, he invites her but thinks that she's not going to say yes.
Yeah. So yeah. Anyway, no one really wants her to go because she's still like super depressed. Obviously, her family is still pretty dead. That hasn't changed. And so we see them like traveling to Sweden in the next scene. Once they get there, they meet like a couple of other people. They take a bunch of drugs and they have some pretty neat hallucinations. Like I thought like the visual effects in that part was pretty interesting. But after they take those drugs and they kind of get into like the commune or whatever it is you want to call it, the cult section area of the land, you start seeing some weird stuff happening, right? Like you start seeing.
Yeah, they start doing the time warp.
I didn't like it. I don't like that. But like, yeah, so they start doing, weird stuff like what's some of the things they're doing? They're like twisting a couple of sheets or something like that around like a pole or something like that. They're all like doing weird flowery dance. They're being a bunch of hippies, and if you're not comfortable with hippies, you're gonna have a bad time. But yeah, so like they get there, they kind of settle in, and one of the first things they see is that's like a red flag, I would think, is two people killing themselves. They get on top of a cliff and then they jump off and take a gnarly nosedive into the ground, and one of them doesn't die all the way, most of the way, but he doesn't really finish. And so somebody goes up there and is like, I got it, I get you. And so they hammer his head, and then that's it.
So only two of them actually react to the situation.
Mm-hmm.
The college bros, I don't know if they didn't care or if they're just like, be respectful, y'all, be respectful. Yeah. But it was the couple that they freaked out. They're like, what did we just watch?
Yeah.
And that's where what I was talking about before, where you had the right response and the wrong response. Even though like fairy tales for us are based off of Christian values. Mm-hmm. But this fairy tale is based off of their, Christian values and like pagan values. Yeah. But this one is specifically to this made up religion that they have. And they reacted in the wrong way in the situation. Therefore, they got punished.
Yeah.
So that's where you start seeing them being picked off because of them being the outsider and picking the wrong decision. So similar to like I don't know, like Toads and Frogs. That's a fairy tale that is kind of one of those that two girls are walking down the street. One of them is approached by a beggar and she asks for food, and the first one's like, no, go find something yourself. And and then the second one's like, okay, here's a piece of bread. So one of them starts coughing up toads and lizards and frogs, and the other one starts coughing up diamonds and pearls. Which one do you think did it? So that's where this same thing is kind of happening, where uh they're getting punished
Mm-hmm.
for their view on the situation, but in the same way, Danny's being rewarded. Even in this part of the movie, she has gone through that terrible death, and her parents didn't get to pick that death.
Mm-hmm.
But when she talks to, I guess, Pele,
Mm-hmm.
he was
Peppa
saying
Pig.
like they get to, yeah, they get to pick when they die. Like
Yeah.
it's a choice they made, and she
Mm-hmm.
feels comfortable about it.
Mm-hmm.
So she's already sort of settling into this new lifestyle that she's, I think, looking forward to.
Yeah.
Not necessarily ready for it yet, but kind of like, I can see me doing that.
All right. That looks like fun.
Ooh.
Okay, so yeah. Uh so as you kind of progress through the movie, everybody kind of reveals their fault or their sin. How it is that the this movie is basically going to punish these people. So you have Josh, who was like I said, the nerdy one, the I think a couple of them are anthropology majors. I don't know. I don't think all of them are. I think it was just Josh and um, Christian, but he wanted to write a paper about this whole place, his thesis or something like that. Um, so he wants to take a look at like the book of rights or something like that, which has like the history of this whole place and all the stuff they did. No one's supposed to see it, but he's like, no, come on, I want to take a look at it. I won't even take pictures of it or nothing or whatever. And then he winks at the camera because he's gonna do it. You just know he's gonna do it. Um, and I think was it after that or before that where Josh, the guy with the eyebrows, he takes a leak on the ancestral tree.
It was after that, because Josh goes back to go steal the book.
Okay, so yeah, so as you progress, like I said, you everybody kind of offends them at some point, or they one of them, you know, really they're all showing like a disrespect for their culture there, and so at some point one of them dies and then another one dies and then um I don't remember how Mark dies, but Josh gets hit in the back of the head with a mallet and then I think he gets skinned or something. I don't remember something horrible happens to him.
I think he got tackled by the guy,
Mm-hmm.
and he's like, is he gonna kill me, is he gonna kill me? And then they just kind of pull him off screen. So like, yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
All
And then
right.
he gets turned into a skin suit. So
Nice.
mhm.
And so then yeah, you have Josh who gets hit in the back of the head with a mallet by an inbred kid or something like that, right? Like he's like severely deformed. I don't remember what.
It was
No,
the guy wearing Mark's face.
it was the guy. That's what it was. I remember something was messed up with him. There it is. Nothing happens to Christian yet. It's not until we learn, there's some conflict between Christian and Josh when obviously Josh is still alive. Christian decides he wants to write his thesis on this place. And there's this like bickering. And I think that's actually what pushes Josh to go take pictures so he can have like more things than Christian or something like that. Anyway, so throughout the whole movie, there's this, I don't know, maybe she's 16, I assume, 16-year-old redheaded girl who's been eyeing Christian this whole time and being like, what's going on, fancy pants? And he's, not super comfortable with it, but towards the end of the movie, he gets drugged. Yeah.
He was chosen. So he's like the chosen one for her partner, because they have to bring in outside people to breed with.
Mm-hmm. Super
So
weird. I didn't like
yeah,
it.
then they have a really weird family meeting.
Mm-hmm. It is the worst thing that you could ever do to meet someone's family. So I'm not going to get into that. You can watch the movie if you really want to know. I wouldn't. So Anyway, so they're in the throes of activity, right? And then meanwhile, this whole time, Danny has been kind of picked out of the crowd and is like, "Hey, you're the what is it, the queen or the princess or something like
The
that?
Mayflower princess or something.
Mayflower princess."
Mayflower. Yeah, I don't
Yeah.
remember.
Basically, you're the guest of honors or whatever. You're, pageant winner. So they kind of give her like this little parade around town and just like, yeah, she's the best. Um, and then she's like, man, I'm feeling pretty good about myself. I've had a rough couple of months, but you know what? I think it's starting to turn around, and I'm gonna look inside that barn just to see what I see. And she looks inside the barn and sees like her boyfriend and then the other the child just there, and she starts freaking out and she starts screaming and she doesn't like it. I don't know why she would. It's awful. So then now he's offended her. They take him to get fitted for a bear suit. And if you remember at the beginning of this episode, we talked about this. So basically, he gets put in a bear suit, and they set him in this like I don't know, like a straw barn, a straw filled barn or something like that. Um, and then, he's still alive. He's just been poisoned to the point where he can't move or speak. He's just paralyzed. But he's sitting in this bear suit, and it looks like a Beck video or something. I don't know. It's just a little bit weird. Okay, so then,
Yes, intro like weird sounds and
yeah, you think he's gonna get
monotone
up and
voices.
start dancing to something, but and then like a couple of other people get put in there as well. I think the body of Josh gets put in there as well, or no?
So everyone that they killed
Mm-hmm.
was meant to be put in the barn anyways.
Mm-hmm.
And they only do this every 90 years. So they hit the lucky jackpot this year. And yeah, so it was supposed to be, I guess, four sacrifices of people that are from the outside,
Mm-hmm.
two from the inside of their group, and then one picked by the May Queen.
Yeah.
And then they all burn.
Yeah. And then they light the whole barn on fire, and then that's kind of it. Meanwhile, Danny's just kind of like, I did good. I feel good about this. And then that's it. Roll credits. That's the movie.
Well, okay, hold on.
Mhm.
We got more to talk about this.
Sure.
So I think we need to explain that the reason she's so happy at the end is because she's kind of found her happy ending with a family that accepts her. So I think from the beginning of the movie, we understand she's lost her family.
Mhm.
She's trying to find a new family, especially with Christian and his friends, but they don't accept her.
Right.
So when she comes to this new place and everyone is pretty much like, we want to understand what you feel, we want to bring you into our group and have you participate,
Mhm.
that's like her way of kind of achieving her happily ever after, right?
Yeah, it's and I guess it is a fairy tale in like the terms of like what fairy tales used to be. They used to be, some pun intended, pretty grim. They were pretty dark. They usually involve somebody dying or like suffering some kind of a horrible fate, worse than some kind of death. But no, I think you're right. Like it is sort of a happy ending for her if you look at it from that perspective. But if you were watching this and you didn't really have the perspective of like, oh, well, it must be like a fairy tale or something like that, she just looks homicidal and like a sociopath. She's like, yeah, I got him. Like she's happy because her boyfriend, who was drugged into basically just roofied into cheating on her, is now dead. I'm not saying he was a perfect guy. I don't feel bad
Mhm.
that he's dead, but it just seems like, okay, but you just killed him and now you're happy about it.
Okay, so going back to the whole like they get punished for reacting in a certain way,
Hmm.
he's the only character that he doesn't react at all. He
Yeah.
always passes it off on something else. So I think in some way that's like not them punish because they never punish him. She's the one who punishes him.
Yeah.
So she punishes him for the bad things that he has done to her.
Right.
And that's the only one where it's kind of like once she's done that, it's like, oh, she's part of her cult now.
Yeah. It's a bit of an odd ending. Um, I can respect it for that though. Like you said, if it's a fairy tale and it is her kind of coming to terms with that, sure. Um, it's I still bump into it a little bit. Like it's still a little bit weird that it happens that way, because like I said,
Mhm.
technically he didn't really do anything. He didn't violate any of the laws, like you said, um, but he still gets punished uh, for doing what he did, drugged into doing something that maybe he kind of wanted to do, but normally he has like the sense not to do it. And then you can't really punish him for like all of the other things that he did, because at least
Mhm.
not by burning him alive. Because while the things he did were not great, he was never that bad to begin with.
See, I'm also wondering, and I just kind of thought about this,
Hmm.
could it have been like a compliment? Because they put him in a bear skin. And like, if you think back at what Vikings used to do, like as berserks,
Hmm.
they were like, they put on bear skins
Hmm.
and go fight and be victorious and like they're warriors and things. So do you think maybe they could have been like, ah, you followed the rules, but you still got picked. So
Never compliment anyone that way. If you're watching at home and you're like, man, what's the best compliment I could give somebody? Maybe I should paralyze them, dress them up in dead animal hide, and then just light them on fire inside of a barn around other dead people. Do you think they'd like that
an
or cookies?
an edible arrangement is perfect. Like
Yeah,
don't go over the top.
yeah, yeah. You want to save that for something special. Um, so to talk a little bit about that ending, especially, um, I'll talk a little bit about like from where I was coming from with my perspective on this movie. Um, One of my favorite movies of all time. Just I consider one like a masterpiece done as The Wicker Man. Not with Nicolas Cage in like 2002 or nine. I don't remember when it was. Trash movie. It's trash. But the 1970 whatever movie, like 1972 or 1976, um, with George C. Scott and Christopher Lee, um, was probably one of the first movies I ever saw that like actually instilled dread in me. And if you're not familiar with that movie, I'll give you like a really quick rundown of what The Wicker Man is. Um, a Scottish detective, a devout Christian man, is searching for a missing little girl, presumed, possibly dead. We're not really sure. We're kind of led to believe that she might be as the movie progresses. But he goes to this island somewhere off of Scotland, and he proceeds to look for this little girl. As he's doing that, he notices that this whole island seems to be of one religion, but it's not a religion he knows or has ever heard of. And he sees them performing these weird ceremonies where like there's a lot of children dancing around like flowers or whatever, and there's like a lot of like nudity and stuff, and they just don't care like who sees like whatever. And he's like, and as like a kind of a very conservative person, he's like, this is super weird. And he's talking to like the governor or whatever of this island. He's like, isn't this weird? He's like, no, it's part of our religion, it's cool. And he's like, all right, I guess, but I'm not comfortable with it, so I'm just gonna focus on my business. And he spends the movie trying to find this little girl and starts uncovering more stuff about the past of this culture and this island. um, you get to the end of the movie and you find out that the little girl was never actually missing, that the elders of this island, or this religion, have just kind of been hiding her, and she's been like hiding away from the detective. And whenever he's like trying to find out why, he finds out that the reason is they needed him to come to this island and be there on a specific day, um, which is, it's not like the solstice, I don't think, but it's something along those, like the planets need to be like just aligned or whatever, kind of a thing. And so they capture him and they prepare him to be sacrificed. um, this is at the end of the movie already, and he's like, you guys are crazy. um, you can't kill people and sacrifice them to like a made-up god or whatever, and then just assume that all of your problems are going to go away. The problems they've been facing is like drought and or not drought, but like no crops and stuff like that. I don't remember what it was, but so they don't listen to him, obviously. And so it becomes this sort of thing where like he starts trying to reinforce himself with his own religion as they drag him off into a giant wicker man, a built wicker basket man, on the beach at sunset.
hence the hence the name.
And he's like, that's why this movie's called that, as he's getting dragged up into, he was like, I was wondering, I didn't see it. And so they put him inside the cage area, which is just the chest. And it's probably like a 40-foot wicker man. And so it's a huge effigy, basically. They put him in there, they lock him up, and then they come back down and they kind of light the whole thing on fire and just let it burn. And you keep thinking like, all right, at some point he's going to break out or something, or they're going to change their minds, or they're going to something's going to happen. Nothing happens. As the movie kind of fades out into its credits, you hear George C. Scott singing a hymn again, trying to reinforce himself in that faith. And you hear the people like down below are just like chanting and screaming. They're like, yeah, we did it. And you hear you hear George C. Scott like screaming out in pain, and then you don't hear him anymore as the flames consume the entire wicker man. The sun goes down, the screen kind of gets dark, and then the credits start to roll. And the whole time, baby Justin Soto is just, but he's coming back, right? Because he's cool. No, he's not coming back. That's it. So it's this sort of like cosmic horror dread that you get from that movie, that I was like, oh my god, that's so masterfully done. Like you don't realize it, but the second the movie starts, whenever he gets to that island, he's already dead, but he just doesn't know it yet. And it's that sinking feeling of knowing that, like, if you watch it a second time, it gets worse. And then like the more you watch it, the more it just kind of said something. You're like, he's done. Like, oh my god. But I never felt like I shouldn't get invested in this movie, because it still pulls me in every time. So watching that whole movie of Midsommar, I couldn't help but notice, like, okay, there's a lot of that um the resemblance is there. So like you were always kind of destined to be sacrificed from the moment you got there. You were going to be sacrificed a very specific way when you got there. You're going to be burned, either alive or not, but at least Christian, he was supposed to be burned alive. And then just the other things of like that weird culty Hollywood pagan kind of feel to the whole thing. So there were aspects of it that I did like about Midsommar. Some of it was like, okay, like I felt bad for George C. Scott when he died, because he was a good man. He was trying to be a good man the whole time. He didn't really do anything wrong, but he was in the wrong place at the wrong time. He was trying to do something right and he got punished for it. Meanwhile, you've got these college students, these bros that show up, and I don't feel bad that they die. they all kind of have it coming. Um, and so in that respect, I'm like, yeah, I kind of preferred Wicker Man for that, for the reason that it fought me a little bit on like, hey, this character that you like so much, I'm going to take him away from you. Whereas Midsummer was like, you see these characters you don't really like, I hope you enjoy watching them die. And that's they traded a little bit on how they rewarded me for being invested in a movie. Um, so overall, I would probably give this movie, I'm gonna give it like a 6 or a 7. Like for it wasn't like very high for me. I enjoyed parts of it, but like it, I feel like it could have been done a little bit better.
See, well, it's interesting because you look at it from the cosmic horror stance, where my understanding of cosmic horror is that you're not supposed to know the ending.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you're supposed to feel that dread because you don't understand what's going to happen next. But for this story, to me, you are like, you understand that this is the gateway to happily ever after. And that's where it's like it's two conflicting ideas. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you have the open-ended version and I have the we've reached our resolution.
Yeah. If you look at it like that, like it's a means to like a different another story, right? It's a means to an end. Like after that is when the new fairy tale starts of like, well, what's going to happen with her and Uter, you know? Is, is something going to happen there? And then you get like a fairy tale romance between those two, you know, and that's probably where you get like a Prince Charming and a Princess Mayflower or whatever, kind of a story. But for me, the story ended with all of those people getting burned alive, or the one person
Well,
getting burned alive.
I mean, that it's I think you're looking at it from their perspective,
Mm-hmm.
where yeah, they don't understand why they're getting burned.
Yeah.
But I mean, our main character from the very beginning is meant to be Danny.
Yeah.
So at the end, I think she understands, even though the audience might not understand. She understands why they need to be burned.
Mm-hmm.
So I it is a I think the issue that you do approach is that you can't relate to the character very easily.
Yeah.
I mean, you're supposed to be able to relate on, like, yeah, her parents died, but I don't think we would have the same reaction as she does to her parents dying.
Right.
Like, I mean, it's kind of a different coping mechanism, I guess she
Mm-hmm.
has.
Yeah.
But we also have, I mean, I assume most people have like some sort of other connective system. Like, they have friends that they can actually go to and explain things to, and they'll accept them, whereas she didn't have any.
Yeah. Hmm. That's a good point. She was already kind of isolated. I don't know. So where does this movie land for you? What would you give it?
Oh, this is hard. Okay, since I don't watch a lot of horror movies, it's difficult to rate like on a horror scale, because some of the greatest horror movies to other people are the worst ones to me.
Sure.
So, but as a film by itself, I think this is a really adventurous, like, it makes you think kind of film, and I love those. And I'm gonna give it, I mean, a 9. It's real
Dang.
close. Yeah.
Dang. That's high.
I remember when we first did this trailer, you
Mm-hmm.
said that I was going to criticize things, but everything everything we've watched has
Yeah.
been like my favorites. They're picking
Yeah.
bad things.
Yeah, that's true. So far, you haven't watched Predator yet.
Oh,
We'll get to it. No, but like, but to your point, I will say that I do respect movies that are going more this route than other horror movies that rely so much on jump scares. That's not really a a horror movie for me, and that's just sort of a that's a roller coaster. It's just like an experience of you're like, I gotcha. Like, but you're not really scared of the dark anymore.
Yeah, so I think it's important for a little history on us.
Hmm.
The first movie we watched together
Hmm.
in theaters
Yeah,
was Insidious.
it was. And I keep thinking it was ominous or like some other like knockoff of whatever. I don't even know what it was. But yeah, like I keep thinking it's something else because I keep forgetting it because it wasn't that good of a movie.
No, like I for a split second thought that you thought I was insane because I was laughing throughout the whole movie. Like every time something was supposed to be like a jump scare,
Yeah.
like the Sith Lord would show up. I'm like, this
Darth
is
Maul
hilarious.
can't find work anymore since that movie. And it bums me out because he's so good. Um, but yeah, like that's one of like the big pet peeves that I have of like with horror movies is like they rely so much on like those jump scares and not like they don't put in the work to make you afraid of something. I remember my brother telling me a story of like the first time that he saw like The Ring or something like that. Now that movie might be like kind of laughable now, but back in 2001 or whenever that came out, people didn't want to watch TV because it was horrifying. um,
I remember the first time I watched that. That was like the scariest movie to me
yeah,
too. Yeah. And
um,
they build up the dread. That's the thing.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
you
They
don't
put the
get
work in.
touched. You
Yeah,
don't see people get touched.
that's that's a different movie. But no,
Not
so like, and then you have like the Phantasm movies. They'll make you afraid of like mortuaries and like mirrors and stuff like that. Um, it make you terrified of clowns. But these are
I
movies that
don't think that was hard. Like clowns are terrifying.
it's not very difficult. I'll give you that. But like it doesn't help. Like if you're already on the fence about clowns, maybe don't watch it. Um, but yeah, so like these movies that put in the work to make you feel something other than just like surprising you and then trying to get away with that. That bums me out. Like the most recent one I saw that was barely even that was The Curse of La Llorona, which I didn't know this until I started watching it, is within the Insidious universe. They were building an MCU style universe of different urban legends and whatever. Um, and I started watching that and I was like, this is rough. I don't care about any of these people. And like the effects are, Six Flags kind of Halloween stuff. Like if you remember the commercials for like Six Flags Halloween when I was a kid, I remember I see that all the time. Like a mummy would be like, I'm gonna get you. But like that's kind of the stuff that you would see in like these kinds of movies is like it's not really that scary and it just seems silly at some point because they overdo it. They show too much of the monster or it's like
Mhm.
the monster's motivation doesn't make any sense. um and it doesn't make you feel. It doesn't attack the right parts of your brain to make you fear something
Yeah.
like a horror movie should.
And that's important because I mean, there are rules to a horror movie, and anyone that says that like you can break the rules, no, you can't. There are specific rules to make you feel dread,
Yeah,
and that one of them is you can't have the monster fully attack or see the monster fully attack
yeah.
at the very beginning of the movie. Therefore, it ruins the rest of the movie because
Mhm.
you're waiting for it. Jump scares ruin the movie
Mhm.
because you've already died like a miniature heart attack seeing a cat coming out of a trash can.
Yeah.
But
Hmm.
when the animal or whatever jump scares at you, you're like, oh, well, whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
The only good time, and it's a movie I recently watched. It wasn't a great movie, but the only good time they showed the monster at the very beginning, um, the monster wasn't really what you thought it was.
Hmm.
So that's where I was like, oh no, they showed the monster. Now it's stupid. And at the end, I was like, huh, that was pretty good. That was really like a good twist. The movie itself wasn't great, but the plot was interesting.
What
So
movie was it?
This was the Werewolf of
No,
Snow
Hollow. That's right.
Hollow.
You told
Yeah.
me about that. Okay. Um, yeah, and I mean, like, if you look at other movies that, like Jaws, uh, Jaws was cool. Jaws was a good horror movie. It doesn't feel like it if you listen to the soundtrack for most of that movie, but it's so whimsical. There's so much whimsy in like the the nautical stuff where you just like see air chimes going.
But
But it's a horror movie, yeah.
the whole thing about Jaws is it wasn't supposed to be like that. They were supposed to have shots of the shark like everywhere, and
Yeah.
they admitted later on like we were gonna do that, but this is much better.
Hmm. Yeah, and that's
And it's
part
a
of what builds the dread. Like if you don't
mhm,
really see what it is that's going to try to kill you, you don't know how to prepare for it, so your brain goes into like crazy mode of like, well, I don't know what to prepare for because I don't know what it is. And and that's part of what makes that movie so great. Dialogue is also
yeah.
really cool in that movie. All around, it was just a really great horror movie, but like
Mhm.
uh kind of blessed by all the curses that it underwent.
Even in the scene where he's like, "We're gonna need a bigger boat," you don't see how big that monster is until the very end
Yeah.
of the movie. Like it, he's dragging the boat down. You're like, "Oh, geez, that's a giant fish."
When he eats Skippy, what's his name?
I
Cappy?
Quinn.
Quinn.
I don't remember. Yeah.
He was probably my favorite character, but he seems like a real jerk. Anyway, so because he's got the best lines in the movie, but whenever he eats that dude, I'm like, oh, he's gonna get away, right? Because he's going too slow into the jaws of this chomping thing. I'm like, he's gonna get out of that, and then he just starts getting eaten, and he's like, ow, God, and then you see blood coming out, and you're like, I think he's getting out of this.
That's not good. Okay.
but
Well,
But I agree
I,
with you. There are
yeah,
rules that you need to follow, rules of a good story, and that's what it is. You can't treat a horror movie like a B movie just because it's a horror movie. If you treat it right, if you treat it like a good story, you're going to get a good movie out of it that also happens to have scary elements in it. Um, and I think you're right about that. You can't ignore the rules of good storytelling, no matter what kind of movie you're making.
exactly. The end. We'll never make another video.
Goodbye, everybody. Um,
I just wanted to tell a story.
yeah.
Um, so we mentioned clowns and how clowns are super scary.
Mhm.
As a kid, I had a a puppet clown above my bed, and this one girl had told me a scary story that there was a clown at the edge of a girl's bed, and slowly it would come up to her, like where she was sleeping, and it would like tell her, "I'm gonna kill you." So I come home from a sleepover with this girl, and I'm like, "There's a clown at the edge of my bed. I gotta get rid of this thing." So
Mhm.
I I know I put this thing in the trash can, but I think somebody pulled it out and put it back in my room.
Yeah.
It scared the heck out of me. I wouldn't sleep in my bed for like
Mhm.
years,
Yeah.
years.
Mhm. This was 4 years ago. Man, that's horrifying. I remember I watched.
Right?
I remember I watched it whenever I was like 3 or something, and I think I told you that I haven't told the audience this, but I saw it. It was airing on TV. I must have been like 2 or 3 years old or something like that. It was one of my first memories. Um, I walked into the living room and it is like turning into like that spider, and the kids are like trying to kill
Ugh.
it with the slingshot and stuff. And I think for that year or like the next year, my mom dressed up as a clown for my
Oh
birthday,
no.
and I wasn't scared, but I was like, because I knew it was my mom, but I was like, you can't do this, bro. And I think I told her like, I don't really like clowns, Mom. But I don't think I told her why until like much later. But she was like, okay, I won't dress up as a clown anymore. I was in my gut. I could feel like that dread that I was telling you about when I watched The Wicker Man. Thanks for watching, everybody. Let us know in the comments what you think. Did you like Midsommar? If not, tell us why. If you did, tell us also why. I'm curious about that.
What's your favorite fairy tale? Tell me. I'm very interested.
Yeah. Or what's your favorite scary movie? Let us both know in the comments about all that stuff. But anyway, thanks for watching, guys. We will see you later. Have a great week.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye.
Oh, I had another clown as a kid. I was maybe 4 or 5, and it was a wind-up clown. So when you wound it up, it would move its head around in a circle and play a song.
No.
And it did not bother me as a kid, but now it's like, that was so creepy. It'd be like, I think it was like the Pop Goes the Weasel, but it would just go its head back and forth like, Pop Goes the Weasel.
God,
Like,
no.
oh,
The only thing would be worse is like if it never said Pop Goes the Weasel and it just kept like building and building and building and until you just drove yourself insane with it and you had to be committed. I'm gonna make that toy.
That's terrible.
A good toy.
I don't like it. I think it's still somewhere up in our attic, which
The
is
attic is the
terrifying.
worst place for terrifying toys. The trash, the incinerator, maybe landfills. These are the best places for scary toys. Never keep them in the attic or the basement, or an old like a closet you never go into, because it'll come for you.